Good morning, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to CW Iowa Live here on Channel 23. Jackie Schmelin here with Michelle Brown, who's filling in because Lou is out picking some sweet corn this morning, so don't forget to bring us all back
blowing things up. He's having a great morning.
But we're so excited to have Kim Baer joining us from Baer Law Office, talking about some important things this morning, including starting a small business, why that might be important with some new tax laws that are going into place. So thank you, Kim, for being here this morning. So let's dig into it a little bit. Let's talk about owning a business and what that means in today's world.
Right. So, a lot of people, kind of have a dream, and some of them actually follow that dream, and whether or not they start their own business, or maybe they go to work for a family business, or they buy a business. And what we often see is that they're just kind of out there doing it, and they're what we typically call a sole proprietor. Mm-hmm. And so they're just out there working, and they haven't stopped to take care of the legalities. In other words, they haven't stopped to set up either a limited liability company or an S Corp or a C Corp.
Okay.
And so that's problematic, because what happens is, let's say something goes wrong. And so I'll give you an example. Let's say that, Jackie, let's say you're making homemade skateboards at home.
Okay.
And you're selling them, and you've got this nice little business going on, but it's just Jackie's skateboards.
Yeah.
You don't have an LLC, and you sell one, and one of the wheels falls off, and it's because you made an error, you didn't put enough bolts in it or whatever, and so somebody breaks their leg. If they're going to file a lawsuit, they're going to sue you personally. They're not going to sue, let's say you even call it Jackie's Skateboards, but if it's not set up as a company or a corporation, they're suing you personally. So your bank account, your house, your car, your whole business, everything is at risk, because there's nothing that protects the business.
There's no protective barrier.
Exactly. So what the LLC does, a limited liability company, is it basically creates a shield. And so if somebody gets hurt, now let's say you've set up an LLC, and so the same person gets hurt, they have to, under the law, sue the LLC. And so all they can get to, let's say it was a really bad break, and now they're going to have a permanent limp, and so maybe it's a big case.
Okay.
All they can get to is your assets that the company owns. So, and chances are, if it's a small at-home business, you probably don't have a lot of assets, that the business, can give up. And so, everything you have personally is protected.
Okay.
So that's why it's really important for people to stop and say, okay, you know what, it doesn't take much time, it certainly doesn't cost very much to get an LLC set up.
What is involved with that?
Yeah, so literally, we do it in our office for about $400, and that includes the $50 filing fee we have to pay the Secretary of State. If you already have an attorney, ask your attorney what they charge, but it's really just not that expensive. It gets a little bit more expensive if there's more than one member. So, and what I'm really talking about is
employees or?
No. So let's say now you've got a partner. Let's say that I think your skateboards are terrific, and so I say, hey, I want to invest.
They're great skateboards.
They're great skateboards.
The herb business later is what you'll want to invest in. Yeah, not the skateboards, but her herb growing business.
That's business.
We'll talk about that later in the program.
Yes. So yeah, let's say I really like your herbs. And so if there are two of us that are going to be in the company, then we have to have an operating agreement, because we have to have a formal agreement that says what happens if one of us wants out, how are we going to make decisions, is it going to be 50-50? So, but if it's just you, it's pretty straightforward. It gets, like I said, it gets more expensive if there's going to be more than one.
And it probably makes more sense to have a professional help you setting up that LLC when there are more layers to it than just as an individual, right?
Yes. Because people will say, well, I can do it online. There's some forms, and there are forms, and you probably could do it online, but there's lots of questions that we would have for you. Okay, do you need an EIN number? An EIN number is a tax ID. Do you need to be collecting sales tax? What happens, let's have a discussion about what happens if you want to add somebody down the road. Right. Is somebody explaining to you what you need to do once you get it set up? Because there's filings that you have to do every 2 years. So when somebody comes in to talk to us, we talk about all of that. We make sure that you get off on the right foot. We get everything filed. So yeah, I think it's probably worth hiring a lawyer.
Absolutely. And I called your office earlier this year because I was concerned about tax purposes, because I do some work outside of what you see here in the studio, and I was worried about the new tax laws that are in place. And it's like, is it important to get an LLC to protect yourself when it comes to the new tax laws?
Yeah, so there are lots of benefits under our new tax law that's in place with regard regard to whether or not you have an LLC, a C Corp, or an S Corp. Usually for most small businesses, what we're looking at is either an LLC or an S Corp.
Okay.
And although a lot of, and then medium-sized to bigger businesses a lot of them are now transferring over to a C Corp. And so the reason why those businesses are transferring over to a C Corp is because the tax structure has dropped, the tax rate for C Corps has dropped. And so a lot of times it's going to be cheaper to run more money through a C Corp than it is just to pay yourself directly. And so without getting into all the tax laws, what I can tell you is that there's a lot of tax benefits now to actually being an LLC or being an S Corp or C Corp as opposed to just being a sole proprietor. And the easiest way to explain that is, let's say that you make a good living at your business, and so maybe you're in the 35% tax bracket. But a C Corp is going to be taxed at, I think it's maybe right around 20% now. So that's a whole, you can save 15% on taxes by running everything through the corporation.
Wow.
So it makes a big difference.
And if people are looking at this now, even though the new year has begun,
yes,
there's still an opportunity to take advantage of
absolutely that. And in some cases, we can ask the IRS to consider it, to kind of backdate it, to say, okay, it becomes effective this time. But the other thing is with regard to liability, I mean, I'll have people call me, and let's say something's happened. Somebody fell off the skateboard, and they'll call and they'll say, okay, I'm going to get sued, or this happened. I need to set up an LLC.
Right.
And I'll tell them, well, yeah, you do need to set up an LLC, but we're a little late with regard to that accident, because you're going to be personally liable for that one, because we can't undo what's already happened. So the best time to get this stuff done is before something happens.
So start considering that now.
Start considering it now. And then for people that have rental properties, it's real important too, because if you've got if you're not good about keeping up repairs, or something is repaired and it's not repaired properly, let's say that we have a deck that collapses or stairs or something. If it's not owned by an LLC, you also can be personally liable for anything that happens at your rental property.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Okay.
So something else to think about.
Great to think about. And so if you are starting a business, or you're currently have a small business, what type of legal team or person should you because it's important to have somebody that you have as part of that business to help you with these types of things. So are there certain things they should look for in an attorney or legal firm?
I mean, I think there are lots of lawyers out there that specialize, and so you want to look for someone that does business law. My firm does business law, and you want somebody on your team who's going to help you through not only getting it set up, but maybe now you want to add employees, or maybe now you've got a lease that you want to look at. I had some guys come in, they were going to expand a Mexican restaurant, and they had a lease, and they were just about ready to sign it, and they said, oh wait, we should have Kim review it. And I pointed out on page 33, I said, do you see here they're going to take a percentage of your profits each month? What? They hadn't even seen that. Well, somebody hands you a lease that's 35 pages long.
You just skim over it. And you trust.
Yeah, and you trust. Yeah. So,
wow.
That little detail had never really been brought up. And so, needless to say, that was invaluable, to them. And, and I charged them for an hour of time. So, and that's the other thing, too, is, talk to your lawyer if you need to come in. And people are always worried about fees. Just ask up front, hey, what will you charge me to set up an LLC? Or what will you charge me to review this lease? Most lawyers will tell you up front, so that way you know what it's going to cost going in.
Yep.
So don't be afraid of a big bill. Just call the lawyer first and say, hey, what will you charge me?
All right, so we've talked about costs. Let's talk about how long it would take. If we called you today and said, I need to get this rocking and rolling, how long of that process?
Oh, it's very quick. I mean, if you called us and said, hey, it's an emergency, I've got to have it done by tomorrow, you can give us the information, we can get it drafted up. I mean, it usually takes us a couple of hours to put stuff together. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah,
and it can be done quickly.
Yeah, we've got, four lawyers and plenty of staff, so we've got people that can get it done. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So if people want to get in touch with you because they're learning something this morning and saying,
that's great information.
I need to think about this. What's the best way to get in touch with the Baer Law Office?
Just give us a call at 515-279-2000. We don't charge for a consultation, so come on in and have a cup of coffee and we'll figure it out.
Perfect.
So, very nice.
Great advice this morning. Thank you, Kim, so much for joining us.
Save you a lot of headaches down the road.
Right?
Yes, for your herb business.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll be
Don't start off on the wrong foot, Jack.